Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I hope everyone had a fantastic holiday and is going to be safe tomorrow for New Year's celebrations all around. Today, we are going to be darning a cotton dress that got snagged on something when I was working outside. It's actually been in my to mend pile for probably 2 years. I actually just went through my whole basket and have a couple more things to work on and a couple things to add to the basket that I've kept in my rotation of clothing because I love them and I don't want to wait for them to get done. But since I'm working through them so quickly with you guys, and I hope you're making some progress on your baskets, I decided to start taking those out of my rotation so that I can get them done. So this is just a cotton dress. It's just a regular, fairly thick cotton fabric, and it has the very typical L-shaped rip. So you see this a lot when something gets caught. You'll see that L shape. And so we're going to do a little bit of a different style on this one than we have on previous ones. And I will show you guys the technique that I like to use for this type of tear. It's a little bit different than we do with the knitwear where we're weaving the ends in. So I'll show you what that looks like. I did briefly consider doing a embroidery patch on it. However, it is on the back of the dress and it is fairly low on the back of the dress. And so I decided against having a eye-catching piece of embroidery that close to my back end. So I am just going to be using a thread that very closely matches. This is actually the same thread. I think it's the same thread that I used on the sweater. The sweater and this dress are from the same company, so it's a very, very close color, and apparently I like it. So we will get to that in just a moment, but that is going to be the focus of today. But I did want to kind of share with you guys something that I started doing, and I started it this weekend because I guess it's over the last week. My family did Make It Christmas, and I opted to do quite a bit of yarn and fabric made gifts. They were all such a big hit, and I realized my anxiety over the last 2 or 3 weeks was not necessary. If you and your family ever decide to Make It Christmas, get started before September. I thought I was giving myself plenty of time. We determined we were doing it in December of last year, so we had an entire year. And there is still a gift that I gifted, partially done, but not complete because I didn't get to it. I've been staying up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning every morning, which is why I have not been able to do lives because I've just been exhausted and every spare minute has been dedicated to getting all these gifts done. I thought September was a solid start time. It's not. It's not. So don't do what I do. Learn from my lessons, and I do recommend Make It Christmas. It was such a great experience. We were able to learn so much about each other and how people think differently and everything else, as well as see the creativity from people who don't usually lean into that side of themselves. For me, I'm a creative person and I make things a lot, but it was still hard to think about what to make as a gift. And half of my family is not a creative personality. And so seeing what they came up with was just so great. It was so incredible. So incredible. But I realized that I had a lot of textile scraps. So what I started doing was, and I saw this from Bernadette Banner. She's amazing. She's a seamstress who does a lot of period pieces. If you don't follow her channel, highly recommend it. But she takes fabric scraps or strings or threads or yarns or whatever and compiles them and keeps them instead of throwing them away so that her projects are no waste. And I absolutely adore that concept. Have never thought of it before. And I realized that I'm in a position now where my home is set up and I am emotionally chill enough, like I don't have too much going on in my life, that I can manage doing something like this. So all of my fabric scraps from the project that were cotton based, ended up in this basket. I am going to start one separately that is for non-natural fibers. I am transitioning my family to natural fibers and trying to maintain that anything new I'm bringing in for my family is natural fibers only. So this will probably be reserved for stuffing of future toys or pillows or anything that I make that needs some extra stuffing in it so that we don't have to purchase that type of thing. I will also have a basket of, like I said, non-natural fibers. So I am comfortable putting alpaca, angora, wool, cotton, hemp, flax, all of those sorts of materials that are grown or produced on animals into this one, and then I'll have a separate one for anything that contains polyesters or is heavily treated or processed to get to a fabric state. So I found in my stash of repair stuff this t-shirt that has been in there again for a couple of years. And first of all, there's some staining, and I'm pretty sure it's ink. And then, like, this is the state of the underarm area. This was a very thin t-shirt to start with. You can see that it's that heathered, and so it's not very thick all the way around anyways. There's also these tears at the neckline. The other armpit's the same way. I wore it as a gym shirt for a long time. But this one is cotton, and there's just so many holes. And I'm not at a point in time in my life where this is the style that I'm going for. This is not a color that I really wear. It's really fluorescent. And so I decided that I would turn this into scraps for stuffing because it is cotton, but it just, with the amount of damage it has, it's a good work shirt. Like, I could just wear it for working stuff, but I even wear dresses when I'm working. And so it's, you know, I don't know. I just think that it's time to retire it. I think it's time to give it new life in a different way. It is clean, it's washed, it's sanitized, all that. But I think I'm going to work on cutting this into fabric scraps. So that might be one of the projects that we get to today, just depending on how much time we have. If you guys have a different opinion or think that I shouldn't turn it into scraps and think I should keep it as a overshirt, I do have a smock from when I was dog grooming that I can use for anything water, mud, paint, anything like that, because it's just a black, water resistant, it's not waterproof, zip up smock. So I don't really need a work shirt like this, and it would sit in my closet and have less uses than the smock would, whereas if I cut it up and put it into my little scrap bin here, I can get more use out of it than I would have. Okay, so for this repair here, I am using embroidery thread because I want it to have that cottony, fluffy texture. So I don't want to use a sewing thread. I'm going to make it, this is almost like an embroidery piece. I want it to be pretty, but I also want it to be seamless. And I want it to kind of fill in some of those gaps. So as we're going here, this is 6 strands of embroidery thread. And that's a pretty good length. So I'm actually not going to cut it at all. But I think I want to work with, this is a pretty fine weave, so I think I'm actually going to work with 1 thread at a time. If I need to go over it more, I can always do that. And this is how I separate my embroidery threads. I do put one end, the end that I'm separating out, in my lips to hold it, and then I unravel with my right hand and hold the rest of the threads in my left. The twisting motion with the right hand is what helps to keep it from raveling back on itself. And what you're doing is just sending that twist down the length of the thread. And that does happen sometimes, where you pick up your hair. The twist will pick up your hair. It's like a version of undoing a, you can also do it this way. I just find that the separation from my hand to my mouth makes it a little bit easier. But it's like when you're weaving, or not weaving, spinning yarn, you have to be a little bit careful about where that momentum is coming from, and going to. I will say, I am glad that, so the one project that I didn't get finished was actually, it's a heat pack. It's a foot design that I kind of just made up. One of my family members has a lot of foot issues where they are experiencing neuropathy in their feet, and so I created this heat pack shape that's kind of like a slipper and has a rice filling in it so that they can actually put it in the microwave. It's all cotton thread, everything else, so it's microwave safe, and then just slip it on their foot for some extra added heat and comfort. Well, I ran out of rice because these were not the first or the only heat packs that I made for people, and so I have to buy more rice before I can actually finish that project. But other than that, my projects are all done. I do have 2 ornaments that I am making for a dear friend of mine that are their Christmas present, but we are very casual about when we exchange gifts, and so I did not prioritize them. They're also going to take a lot more time than anybody else's, just from the nature of how they're being made. So I told her that it would probably be February that she would be getting those. Alright, I am just knotting my thread here, and I'm knotting one end. Actually, I should have done a hoop start. I've been doing a lot of hand sewing where I've needed it to be separate, so I should have done a loop start, but I've just been in the go mode of knotting it. Okay, so now that I've got that thread that actually is a lot longer than I typically like to work with, but that's okay. The very first step, I think I'm going to bring you guys in closer. Thanks for joining me, real close and personal here. We're gonna just go down to my lap. Okay. I'm gonna give the screen a chance to catch up. Let's go a little bit higher so that I get the framing right. Alright, so we've got our cut here. And this is very, very typical of, like I said, something getting caught on it. I believe this was Attack of the Blackberry Bushes, but I honestly don't remember. I have the right side on top, the inside is on the bottom. Make sure I don't have the liner caught in there. I don't. So what I'm going to do is a back stitch all the way around the entire tear. And what that's going to do is give some structural integrity to the weaving of the fabric itself, so that threads don't just start unweaving themselves. So we're kind of fighting 2 different pieces here. We're fighting the tear getting bigger, and we're also fighting the fabric unraveling. You can see here is one thread that I can just go up and down it because it is worked out of the, I obviously don't know if it's the waft or the weft, the warp or the weft side of it, because I didn't create the fabric. Maybe other people do. I'm not that good at it. The fact that I remember the words was impressive enough for me. So I'm going to do a back stitch all the way along this to anchor those all in. I am fighting I want to say it's a cold, but I've also had it for quite a long time, so I might just actually be sick. Okay, so to start it, you're going to come up from the bottom, and you're going to do just like you would do a running stitch. And then you're going to come up like you would a running stitch again. So just right in line and leaving a stitch worth of length there. And then you're actually going to go backwards and go down in the same spot you went down on that first stitch. Running stitch is actually kind of one of my favorites. It looks the most similar to a machine stitch. So if you're trying to, I've been using it a lot right now with the rice packs because I am trying to finish them similar looking to the threads that you're seeing from the machine stitches, but it's really hard to machine stitch with rice in it, so I have to leave a little bit of a hole and then seal that up. If you guys have any questions, leave a comment down below, or if you are watching live, go ahead and comment. I love to chat with you guys as I'm doing this. We got a little bit of a snag there. Let's see what happened. It's because my thread's too long. This is why I don't like doing a real big one, real long thread, because it does tend to snag more easily. Let's see. Which end are you? Oh, there we go. Got it out. That's okay, because we will use a lot of this thread. Alright, so I came up, I'm going to go back down where the last stitch finished behind it. I am looking forward to New Year's. Is anybody else? I'm most excited for a square dance that I'm going to. It's going to be a lot of fun. It might be the start of a new tradition to square dance my way into the new year. I don't think it doesn't run till like midnight. It runs till 9 like most of the dances do, which is fine. I don't actually want to be dancing until midnight. I'm too old for that. I can barely stay up till midnight as is, let alone being active and dancing. That's asking too much. Alright, I think I'm getting a little far out from where my split is. I want to keep it kind of close because I'm also using this to support the next step of stitches, and so I don't want to be so far off that it is a huge gap that I'm filling. What happened? This thread just is loving to tangle too. And it tangled right at the end of it, so I don't know if I can get that one out. Let's see. Okay, now that I finished the stitch, let's look and see what happened. Oh, it tangled itself. The other thread wasn't even included. Oh, goodness. Oh, and there's another one here already. Okay, I should have cut this. Lesson learned. We're gonna suffer through, but I know better. I do. Okay, and we're just gonna continue this back stitch. I'm gonna start leaning it towards that line a little bit because I started coming up too far. I'm also excited to be able to start offering some custom sewing and crochet pieces in the future. Something I can focus on now that Christmas is over with. I do love creating so much, and I think being able to add that to what I'm doing on a regular basis would just be absolutely beautiful. And to be able to offer people who have the same values as me products that work for their lifestyles easy to find, all that good jazz. I will probably take a lot of January off. I am going to work on those ornaments, but other than that, I plan on kind of taking it off from crafting too much. I also am starting a new challenge with my diet this month, so has nothing to do with New Year's. Let's just throw that out there, because if you watch my video, I'll link it down below, from last year. I don't do New Year's. I don't do resolutions, I should say. I do goals, but I don't do resolutions, because I have found I am not successful with that type of pressure. But I have had my diet be gluten-free for about 4 months now, and that's gone really well, except for I found I was leaning into sugar quite a bit, especially with my grandfather's passing. So I have decided to completely cut sugar out of my diet for 1 month. And the reason I'm able to handle that, one, I am very addicted to sugar. And I know that. It is my go-to for emotional support or late night eating or whatever. And gluten-free alternatives to common sugar things is actually easier than I thought it would be. And so it's been a easy emotional support to get through being gluten-free. And I was nervous to go sugar-free, but it's only for 1 month, and I've already done gluten-free for, I guess it's only been 3, because it was September, October, no, for 4 months. I've done it for 4 months now. And it wasn't always easy, but I did it. And I know that if I cut sugar for just 1 month, I only have to make it through 1 month, that it will help my body to heal, to recover, and to break out of that addiction a little bit at least. And if not, then it at least gets me 1 step closer to my health goals. And that's important. So if anybody would like to do this challenge with me, feel free. I will probably talk about it each week, and I will definitely let you guys know if I cave or anything like that. My sister, who knows that I am very sugar oriented, is interested to see if I make it, and so she kind of presented that like a challenge, which only motivates me a little bit more. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't eat sugar constantly, and I do have, actually, I don't even know if I have days without added sugar. I feel like I do, but also sugar is in so many more things than I think anybody realizes. And it's really hard, and you have to pay tons of attention to what you're eating. I am gonna do fruit. I'm just not gonna do any processed sugar or like sugar syrups, like maple syrup, honey, anything like that. I am gonna eat whole dates, so I know there's some really good date baking recipes. But outside of that, no white sugar, brown sugar, liquid sugars. Alright, this is actually going fairly quickly. I'm getting a nice good straight stitch. So when I do that next part, I'm going to make sure that I go to the outside of those, because those will just help support the whole darning. And I'm excited to have this dress back. I have one in white, but sometimes you just need a nice dark dress. And it's a very utilitarian type of fabric, so it's very thick. And I really do think it had to have been a blackberry bush that did it in, because I haven't had any issues with them outside of this one hole that it got caught on something. And it's also one of my more basic dresses. So a lot of my dresses are one, a jersey knit, which is a much softer fabric and doesn't hold up to as much. Or they're fancy dressy, and this one's much more casual. I mean, I'm good with fancy dressy every day, but this type of just thicker cotton weave fabric makes me feel more confident in doing things like yard work and whatnot have ya. Okay, I'm gonna bring it down into the camera a little bit more. I hope you guys are able to see those stitches as I'm going. And that it's hard to show you guys when there's not a lot of contrast in the stitch itself from the fabric, which is what you want. You don't want it to be super noticeable, but on camera you do, so it's a different type of game we're playing here. Okay, and I'm gonna go, this rip stops right about parallel with that stitch I just did. I'm gonna go down one or two more, I'm not quite sure yet, before I cut over to make sure that I stabilize those threads. The thread is tangling less now that it is shorter, so that's really nice. Alright, the part that's going to get tricky is coming up, and that's where this piece isn't as supported as the outside pieces, because those are held taut by the hoop. So I'm going to have to hold it kind of with my fingers, I think, or just let it sit loose. Because I want to go, I don't want to do a big box like this, I want to go right along where the rip is. So I gotta figure out how to make that fabric work for me and with me and not against me. Okay. Good luck to me here. I think it's just gonna be harder to get it in where I want it to go. Anyone who's watching live, let me know what you're working on. If you've got a sewing project, a yarn project, or other craft. If you're working on some clothes with me. And if you're watching the replay, comment down below. I would love to hear what you've got going for your projects. Looks like I started cutting that a little bit close because these threads are bare over to here. So I'm just going to cut in a little bit further there. That stitch was a little bit bigger than I like to make them, but it's okay. It's still going to help support the threads. I'm just going to kind of hold this with my finger as we're getting to this spot that's a little bit harder to work with. Okay. Now that I'm holding it, that's going to go a lot faster. It's not super easy on my thumb, but it's okay. I'm glad I chose the tiny hoop. I almost went up to the 6 inch instead of the 4 inch. And just because of how wide it was, but it's easier to do it, to hold it this way with the smaller hoop because my hands can actually fit around it. My stitches keep getting bigger. I need to slow down. I'm trying to get through this part because it's difficult, but it needs to be quality work and not just quick work. It's okay because I'm almost done with this difficult part. Okay, and I'm going to switch over above the stitch now. And this is going to be the last stitch that I do on, oh boy. Oh, yep, see I just pulled some of those threads out of there. Okay, I think that's actually going to be the last one I do that way. And then I'm just going to switch it the other direction because it's just fraying up on me. Okay. I'm going to have to do, at some point, a embroidery patch for everyone where instead of matching the thread and trying to make it look as seamless as possible, we make it look pretty and do a flower or a butterfly or heart or some sort of little accent that will cover our hole and make our fabric stronger, but also just add some flair to the piece. I'm learning so much about appreciating your clothing, appreciating not only what you have, but the creativity that goes into taking care of your things and just loving that whole process. I think this year I want to try to make a couple dresses. I did find all of the pieces to the dress that I started making a few years ago. I just need to hem. I need to put on one sleeve. One is already on. I need to hem the bottoms and I need to put in the zipper. And I have that and another dress plan that I really want to do. The tartan dress. I'm still looking for that pattern. It was the most magical looking thing I'd ever seen. It is connected at the shoulders and then has a front tie and a back tie. And I really need to figure out how to make that because I've got the perfect fabric for it. If you have any ideas, let me know. Leave a comment down below. I'd seen a reel of it at one point, but there were no instructions, and she just called it her tartan dress, which is the pattern, not the, it's the pattern of the fabric, not the pattern of the construction of the dress. Okay, we are almost done with this back stitching all the way around. I hope you guys can see that there. So that'll help prevent this from ripping further up, over here, over there, and from the edges fraying too far. So these threads coming out, this is going to help keep those all in place. Okay, so now that I'm done with that part, what I'm gonna do is go top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, and just do kind of big loops to really seal this up. And I think I need to loosen up my hope just a little bit so that I can pull this piece into place just a bit more. Yeah, just like that. So take out some of that tension there so that I can really bring those pieces together. Alright, and we're just going to go from where our thread stopped. So we're going to come up over here, down on that side, up, down, down. So I do have to hold this, and I'm going to try to hold it without adding any warp or tension to it, because I just want to repair that. I don't really want to reshape the garment in any way. I'm going to go outside of that running stitch, or the back stitch that I created. And I'm starting pretty far over from before the rip started so that it's really seamless in there. So up on the part closest to me and down on the part furthest from me. Staying outside of that running stitch. And this is going to use quite a bit of thread. It's unfortunate, not all of the rips like this are frayed as much as this one is, so a lot of times you can do a bit smaller of your wraps. But this one is actually fairly large because it's fairly frayed, and that all of that is fraying, so I can't go into that part. Okay. Did I really do that? Okay. Trying to keep them fairly close together so that it's a pretty solid loop. There's not a lot of things to see through it or anything like that. And that's kind of why I wanted the embroidery thread. But I am going through and doing just a few more in this area because they got a little far apart so that you can see some light shining through. So I just want to make sure that it's clear or filled in all the way. Something about hand stitching is so cozy to me, especially if you're not in a hurry to get the piece done. There's a lot of creators that do hand stitch complete garments, and once I'm better with garment construction on my machine, I would love to tackle a project like that. I feel like it would just mean so much to be able to put that much time and energy into creating a piece that will last in your wardrobe for the rest of your life if you take care of it correctly. And I just love that idea of being able to wear something out and say, I made this myself. I might actually try to get my dress done before the dance tomorrow night, so that I can wear it to the dance. It's not very New Year's looking. It's actually a pink and cream pinstripe, or candy stripe, I guess was what you call it, with some white sleeves. Okay, so you can kind of see how this is just buttoning up that hole there. And if you look at it from the right side, you really can't see, put my hand right behind it, you really can't see through it. And being at the bottom of the garment, this is not going to be super noticeable. This is such a great technique to use and to have in your toolkit, your mental toolkit, your skills. I think when all is said and done, this is probably going to take me just over an hour. And this dress, I paid no more than $30 for it because there are very few items of clothing that I will pay more than $30 for. And I don't think this is one of them. I think I paid about $20 for it. So that feels worth my time. And then this has new life and it's not getting wasted. And it's in great shape other than this. The elastic is good. There's no issues with it. I just love that I can do something so simple and so easy to be able to take care of my clothes. I wish I could understand why more people don't take the time to cherish their clothing. We live in such a fast fashion type of world that it's hard to teach value of our items to people. And I feel like the disposable culture that we live in extends to how we treat people. So relationships, I feel like people are so easy to dismiss someone that they've cared about for so long because of a problem or a conflict, instead of working through it, talking to them, trying to work on a relationship. Yes, there are times when people should be no longer in your life, but I feel like there's a lot of times when, if we took the time and effort and everybody was on the same page, we shouldn't throw people away. We shouldn't throw relationships away. And I think that a lot of that starts with how we treat our belongings, how we treat things that we have, instead of rehoming them or trying to find ways to make things work and be happy and content. We just buy new. And it's really sad that a lot of times it's cheaper to buy something new, especially if it's a electronic and it requires a repair that you can't do yourself, or a part. Sometimes buying a whole part for something will cost you just as much as it would to buy an entire new object, a new electronic to replace it. And that to me is just, it's slightly devastating. It's sad to see these kids who don't know how to treat things properly because nobody ever taught them. The response has always just been, recently, just throw it out, we'll get a new one. Okay, so this corner is getting a little difficult because where the two meet, I have to kind of go around it, and so I'm just going to keep building onto this spot on the inside and keep moving the bottom over. And that's another reason that we're going over the top of those threads, because we can depend on those, the back stitch that we did, but we can't depend on these. Okay, this is actually working out pretty well to go around this corner. I just kind of keep going into the very, very close to where I was before, or the exact same spot, to tether the next thread. So it's starting to curve it around fairly easily. Too bad my initials don't have an L in them at all. This could just easily be a customized piece for me. Hello, hello, and welcome in, everyone. We are doing a darning technique on an L-shaped rib. Okay, this corner is a little tricky, but it has worked it out. We're getting there. The extra fraying on the inside is actually helping it to fill in and make sure that there's no sort of spots that are going to be see-through. I think that's what's going to be nicer about this whole side, is it's going to be easier, not going to have to be as thick a thread, because all the frayed bits are there to really help keep everything in place. Keep it looking nice. My tension did get off just a little bit here. I think maybe it should have been a little bit tighter, but I will try to keep that in mind for the next time that I have to go over one of these. almost think I'm going to change directions here. So you can see the fray is going that way. Oh, maybe it's a little bit of both. It is a little bit of both. Okay. So I want my thread to go the direction that the fray is sticking up to help tack it down so we're not working against it. And I think we have it layered so that the left side, the right side for you guys, is flaring over. So we're going to keep working in that same direction to pull those down so that there aren't any threads sticking up. Now we're still sticking on the outside of that back stitch that we did. Help give some strength to this patch here. And I am going a little bit thinner up here because those threads are going to keep it in place. Or are going to keep it from being see-through, so it's not going to let any light through or anything like that. So we're just trying to zip up side to side, really. We're not trying to fill it in like we were on the other side. Oh yeah, and you can see how that's tacking that down really nicely. Giving us a nice smooth texture. Okay, and that one I went a little bit too wide. There's a little bit too much of that frayed stuff sticking out. So I'm just going to go backwards and just get it tacked down a little bit better. I don't want it popping through my stitches. I just want it to support my stitches. Alright, as we're coming up on the end here, does anybody have any questions? If you do, leave a comment down below in the chat if you are watching live, or if you are watching the replay, leave me a question in the comments. I love to talk to you guys and get tips from everyone else and see what everyone else is working on. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. I've got goals for this year. I've got things I want to do, and I want to be able to reach as many people as I can to help them on their vintage housewife journey, give some different perspectives, different viewpoints, help bring some confidence, practice some skills. We've got lots that we're going to do in 2025. That's weird to say. Has anybody else said it out loud? 2025. That is in just a few days. It's weird to think that we're a quarter of the century through into this millennium. If you were alive before 2000 and you remember what the turn of the century was, or the millennium was like, it was crazy. It's crazy to say 2025. Alright, so I'm basically at the end here. I did make a little bit of a bubble because my tension's a little bit tighter. So I'm just going to try to smooth that out with my thread. That might have just made it worse. I'm not going to be too upset if there is a bubble in it, but I would like there not to be a bubble as well. That would definitely be my preference. Okay, just a little bit. I don't think I can get that much smoother, but that's okay. Like I said, this is the back bottom of this dress, so if anybody is looking at this line, they probably shouldn't be. Just gonna fill in this spot a little bit more. Alright, well thank you everyone for joining me today. We have got this basically complete. Oh no! When did I do that? See that? Oh, it was literally on just the last stitch. Okay, well that's fine. Alright, we're just gonna do a regular little knot back here. Let me know below if you like the idea of the scrap baskets to use for filling. If you feel like that's overwhelming, or if that's a goal you want to have in the future to make your projects more zero waste. There's so many things you could use the scraps for. I mean, realistically, you could even make things like fire starters, anything that you or your family might need. That thread, I have no idea if it's cotton or not. I would assume that embroidery thought it was cotton, but I don't know. And that is a brand that I don't know. I don't know which brand it is either. So we're just gonna put that off to the side for now. And somehow I will find another basket for my polyester stuff. Okay, let's just take this off the hoop so you guys can see what we got done today. All right, so here is the back of that dress. And there is our patch. So that is not gonna, I mean, it's a little obvious. It's more of a navy color than this is more of a, I guess this is more navy, this is more royal blue, but that's okay. It's really not gonna be super obvious and nobody's gonna be staring at that part of my, hopefully they're not staring at my dress in general, but that spot specifically. So thank you everyone for joining me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.